When one mentions the film The Mummy, a few images may come to mind. If you were born last century, you might think of Boris Karloff as the classic portrayal of this horror classic from the 1930s, or the many iterations from the 40s and 50s, including Christopher Lee as the Mummy. Maybe you're like me and remember Arnold Fos-Loo for his portrayal of Imhotep in 1999's remake of the Karloff masterpiece. Now today, we are looking at an item from that Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz action-adventure film, The Mummy. I'm Rob, and this is The Constantly Racing Mind. I really don't remember seeing The Mummy in the theater. I'm sure I did, but the 90s were such hectic times for me. I think I did, and I believe my first thought was that this was just another Indiana Jones derivative. The last Indiana Jones film, The Last Crusade, came out about a decade earlier. However, I realized that in general, the plot follows the 1932 Universal classic close enough to be a direct descendant. So if you're new here, we cover the film genres of sci-fi, horror, action-adventure, prop culture, and all things geek. So if you want more videos on this subject, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be aware of all my uploads. The film draws on the original in many ways, but rewrites the main characters. Included are the treasure hunter Rick O'Connell, the Carnahan siblings Evelyn and Jonathan, who are the spiritual descendants of Lord Carnarvon, the sponsor of Howard Carter's discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun. The addition of the other team of adventurers in the search for Hamunaptra reminds me of the Lucy's various suitors in Dracula, or Benny, the inept traitor, Dr. Terence Bay, a guardian of the tomb of the cursed priest. Now, the mummy character Imhotep was actually the architect who developed the first pyramids in ancient Egypt, most notably the Pyramid of Djoser in Saqqara, around 2600 BC. Now, his ability was such that he was later said to have descended from the gods. His name means one who comes in peace. However, as far as anyone knows, he was not the despised villain portrayed in the movie, but much more likely revered as an architect and a physician. Now, in the 1932 version, Boris Karloff spends most of his time as Arnold Bey, a modern Egyptian who works to reincarnate his ancient love, Anck-Su-Namun. Now, the name of Oded Fehr's character, Arnold Bey, isn't used once throughout the entire movie until the end of the credits. It isn't until the next movie, The Mummy Returns in 2001, that his name is used aloud, and Arnold Bey is an anagram for Death by Ra. Now, the setting of The Mummy is the abandoned desert city of Hamunaptra, the city of the dead. Now, it's here that Imhotep tried to bring his dead lover, the same Anck-Su-Namun, back to life using Evelyn as the vessel for her soul. As the pharaoh Seti's mistress, she first betrayed the pharaoh with Imhotep and eventually killed herself, and Imhotep is caught. As the pharaoh Seti's mistress, she first betrayed the pharaoh with Imhotep and eventually killed herself. Now, Imhotep was caught beginning the resurrection ceremony. Now, most likely, this is the same ritual spell that Isis brought Osiris back from the grave with. But how do we get to Hamunaptra? Now, in the film, there's a map that gives Evie and her brother a reason to even go off and look for Hamunaptra. Now what we learn is that Anck-Su-Namun, Hamunapra's soul, was sent back to the underworld. Now, for their sacrilege, Imhotep's priests were actually mummified alive, and Imhotep himself is forced to endure the curse of the Hamdai. Now, his tongue is cut out, and he is buried alive with a swarm of flesh-eating scarabs. Now, the ritual curses him to become an immortal walking plague if he ever were to be resurrected. Now, he's buried under a high security, sealed away in a sarcophagus below a statue and the Egyptian god Anubis, and kept under strict surveillance throughout the ages by the Magi. Now, the Magi were descendants of Seti's palace guard, and if Imhotep were to ever be released, the powers that made him immortal would allow him to unleash a wave of destruction and death upon the earth. Now, Jonathan says he's found a map in Thebes, the map, and it is to point the way to the lost city of Hamunaptra, where all the wealth of Egypt was supposedly stored. Now, what we find out is that Jonathan actually stole it from Rick O'Connell, a former Foreign Legion soldier who made a stand against the Magi in 1923, 3 years before Evelyn and Jonathan enter the picture. Now, Indiana Jones takes place in the 1930s. However, the 1920s is the appropriate time for a story like this, because in November 1922, Howard Carter discovered the grave of the 18th dynasty pharaoh, Tutankhamun. Now, John L. Balderston, one of the original screenwriters of the 1930 classic, was a journalist in Egypt during the 1922 and covered the King Tut's opening. He gave Boris Karloff the horror vehicle link to ancient Egypt and the living dead theme. So what do you think about the map? As usual, but not always, I got this off of Etsy. Now, the artist is Lost Delta Outpost, and I'll put a link in the description so you can check them out for yourself. Now, the map is 11 by 17 inches on canvas, aged and folded, and I guess, you know, it's sort of like Indiana Jones's map with no names, because you can't really tell where it starts. I'm supposing it starts in Thebes. So, let me know what you think about this map. Should it have been burnt? Should I burn it along the edges to make it more screen accurate before it was ruined, or what was completely forced Evie and Jonathan to actually search out Rick? So let me know what you think about it. More Mummy videos, more Indiana Jones videos, Star Wars, of course, and what about Jurassic Park, the memorabilia? And if you liked the video, tell me. Hit the like or the thumbs up, or if you didn't, slam the thumbs down. Subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of my next video, and click on that video right there for more fun.